You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but today's romance review marks the 12th and final episode in Boobies and Newbies' annual holiday special, The 12 Days of Boobsmas. That's right, today we close the books, pun intended, on another 12 days of Boobsmas and on our 4th podcast season. You better believe, though, I've got plenty more in store for season 5, including new author interviews, a 2022 reading challenge, and coming next summer, Boobsmas in July. That's right, I just can't stay away from those holiday reads. Anyway, all that and more kicks off at the end of January, but first, a little break. Keep in mind that while I'm away, you can always catch up on past episodes, blog posts, and so much more on our website, boobiesandnewbies.com. And of course, I hope you'll consider joining me on Patreon. Every dollar makes a difference, and it helps me create awesome new content for you. Finally, I just want to thank everybody who has supported the podcast this Boobsmas, this season, and of course this year. Regardless of how, where, and with whom you're celebrating, I hope you have a wonderful, safe, and ideally stress-free holiday season. And now on to the grand finale in this season's Boobsmas extravaganza. Joining me today is writer, podcaster, and mermaid mogul, Laura Von Holt. You might know Laura from her podcasts, Astrology Zoned and the Mermaid podcast, or perhaps you've read her books published under the name Laura Lovely. Either way, I am very excited to celebrate the 12th day of Boobsmas with my fellow Frolic podcaster, Laura. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Happy boob holidays.
Yes, that's true. It's not just Boobsmas. Yeah. We also celebrate Boobsmas.
Yeah.
We also celebrate
Boobs
what would
year.
Be Boobswanza.
Yeah. And the 12th night of boobs. Great.
Just great. All boobs.
Great.
All boobs.
Great. Great. Excited. Okay.
No, I'm so excited to have you. Speaking of holiday celebrations, along with Boobsmas, Boobsmaca, Boobs Years, whatever. How are you celebrating this holiday season?
I don't totally know, but I have a guess. Well, first, what's going to happen, and this is new for me, is that so I live in New York City, but what people don't know is that I was born and raised in Hawaii. And so I have, and yes, I know. So I have often gone back to Hawaii for the holidays. So I don't have like a white Christmas. So thing, okay. It's like it's tropical. Sometimes it's
sandy.
Like well, it's like rainy. Like I grew up kind of more in like a higher elevation. It's like rainy, And actually, I'll just romance fans, you're gonna love this weird fact about me. I grew up on a cattle ranch in Hawaii, and let your imagination run wild.
Wow, you're hitting like so many things.
Yeah. I was like, my life is a trope. I'm like small town island girl from a ranch leaves to make good in the big city. Becomes an author and lives in Manhattan.
It's so many things. You're right. Like the book writes itself.
Yeah, I know. I am waiting for like my own Hallmark movie about myself, and I'm like, I hope they make it because I do need to learn the meaning of Christmas. So like, I want someone to write it for me so I know.
You need to learn the meaning of Christmas. Why?
I don't know, because that's what usually happens. Like you big city girl goes back to small town, something happens, and then like your life is solved, which I don't know. However they want to do it. I'm just saying that like I'm ready for the Hallmark movie about me. But Hallmark After Dark. I did appreciate
Hallmark After Dark.
I do appreciate when like there's Hallmark like tropes, but they have banging in them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. I would also want that to be present in the story about me
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
exactly. I would want it all to be like, she goes and finds somebody and fades to black.
Romantic.
Yes. I usually go home for Christmas, and I didn't last year, but I am gonna go home this year. But what I discovered last year is I never really decorated for Christmas because I was leaving and something
Mm,
was gonna die. So sometimes I got like a very small tree and put a couple ornaments on it. But last year, to like combat seasonal depression and like general despair, I really decorated. And I had like
yes.
a big tree, and then I had a small pink fake, it's a fake tree, but a pink tree, which was Dolly Parton themed, and I called it my hard candy Christmas tree. And like,
Stop it.
yeah, and that one I left up through Valentine's Day just for like, it was like my seasonal depression lamp, but it was like a pink tree.
Yes.
Um,
That's a good tip. I like that a lot. And especially because like it's a bright color.
mhm.
You can, put on ornaments, lights, whatever
Yeah.
have you. But I I feel like I saw somebody posting about how they have a fake tree up like all year long and they just decorate the tree differently depending on like what time of year it is. Like they have it decorated for the 4th of July and they have it
Oh.
decorated for Halloween. And like I was like, that is freaking brilliant. And what a great excuse to just decorate for every occasion.
Well, and we also live in like the wonderful time and era of LED and dimmer lights. So like, and I could control
Yes.
it with like my Amazon robot, whose name I can't say or she'll start talking to me. And so I would be like, Amazon robot lady, like put the tree at 10%, and then I would be like, oh, it's so romantic,
The mood
and then it was time to like when the sun went down at 4 o'clock because the winter is a terrible.
It's true.
Then it would be like lights on. I'd be like, oh, only momentarily depressed. Oh, great, lights off. So this year I have a different tree. I'm having one of my best friends lives down the street, and he's an artist, and he's like very good visually, and he's just like in charge of arranging everything in my life to look good. So he's like, this year you have to get a gold tinsel tree, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And I got afraid of like shipping delays and supply chain, so I ordered it really early. So it's just been like in a box in my small apartment, like in the hallway waiting. And I'm gonna have a gold tree, and I always have star and mermaid and disco ball ornaments. So
Naturally.
naturally.
Mhm.
And then I was like, no, I need more, because sometimes like I want to take down the tree, but I'm not ready for the lights to go away. So this year I got like a twinkle curtain that I can put in my
Ooh.
window. So if I take the tree down, I can still have the seasonal lights come on.
Yes.
And the bonus of this is I live in a high rise, and there's an office building directly across the way, and it was empty forever. But like a couple months ago, like some of them came back, and only in the floor directly across from my windows. It's like I woke up one morning like not really wearing anything, and I was like, oh, Jim's back. Jim's back. Jim is back in his office.
Jim
Like,
got a show that morning.
like, good morning, Jim. You don't need your coffee today. You got some Boobsmas.
Yeah,
like,
Merry Boobsmas to
yeah,
Jim.
Jim, you're welcome. You're welcome, Jim. So now I'm delighted by like the fact that like I still have like part of my window has like crystals, and that's where I'll do like my like witchy stuff in the morning. So like there's people doing like accounting, and I'm like,
I mean, everybody to each their own. Start your day in whatever way is going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah. Well, and I live in the financial district, so I'm like, it's fine. I'm just the Witch of Wall Street. They don't know. Like, it's great. And
Book title right there.
Thank
Witch
you.
of Wall
You're
Street.
right. Witch of Wall Street. Okay. Filing that away.
Well, but it's a great point too that you make where like I'm traveling for the holidays to go home and, spend it with my family. And I think a lot of people do travel for the holidays, like COVID aside. But I think so many people who live in apartments, especially when we are planning on leaving to visit family, friends, whoever it might be, you don't necessarily like take the time to like decorate your own space because you're like, well, I'm not going to be there, for the actual day. But that's something I did last year that I do want to continue doing this year was like I put up a tree on Thanksgiving, just a small one. And my new thing to like get me in the mood too is that whenever I travel now, my new collector's item is an ornament. So like I just picked up an ornament in New York City. Like I grabbed one from like a Halloween festival I went to. Like, I mean, so I love having, and then I'm like, well, I have to get a tree because I have to display these beautiful items that I have collected from like all over for if nobody else, just myself. And it's a great excuse to, lighten up the, I don't know. I like changing things every once in a while. Like
Yeah.
things get boring. Are you also, I do this too. I'll like rearrange my furniture like every few months because I'm just like, I need something to look different.
I think I have lived in too many small apartments where like you put the furniture there and that's the only way it can go.
I understand that completely as well.
But the other day I was like, I really want to arrange my bedroom. And I was like, I don't really have a bedroom. It's called an alcove studio, which means there's enough room for a bed and dresser, but like nothing else. And I was like, I want to rearrange this. And I was like, it could swap sides.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's all you got.
Move this to this wall and move what's on that wall to the other wall.
It was like, maybe I'll put my socks in a different drawer. It'll be a new space.
See, I mean, just the littlest thing. So like if I can put up some twinkle lights and a little tree and my ornaments for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, who cares? No one should be judging. Then I'm going to do it. So I think, obviously we're recording this well before Christmas time, but this episode will drop like closer to Christmas Eve. And so I'm hoping that everybody has found opportunities to, brighten up your space, like whether it's putting up decorations or it's, making a mulled beverage of some kind, whatever that means for you, just whatever, take the time for yourself, because if you're not happy like with your space that you're in, it's going to be very difficult to be like productive and happy and like get through the day.
And something that's like seasonal for winter, but not just exclusively holiday time, is hot chocolate. So like if you're listening to this, and so if you're like, oh wait, I didn't do the, like, you can just get a hot chocolate sampler and be like,
always.
I'm good.
I have a thing in our family, and the only people who know about this are people who know me or like friends that I've shared this with. We have a hot chocolate maker called Cocoa Motion.
Ooh.
Yeah,
exciting.
And it's one of those products that I think Mr. Coffee made like a good 20, 25 years ago, and it probably never got popular, and so they stopped making them. And so we had the same Cocoa Motion machine in my family for like a solid like 10, 15 years before it crapped out. And so now if you need to buy one, you have to hit up like eBay or like Amazon Marketplace, because like they don't make them anymore. So like you have to go and find a Cocoa Motion.
But so what does Cocoa Motion do that other machines can't do?
Laura, let me tell you.
Okay,
like this. So you put in your milk, you put in your powdered chocolate, you press the on button, and not only does it spin it around real nice and mix her up, but it also heats it up.
Oh, so the milk is hot, and it's like a Keurig. You can only, they do the water. It's not.
Yeah,
milk
it's
chocolate.
literally a coffee maker, but for cocoa.
Yeah, wow. But they shake it up. That's the Cocoa Motion.
Yes, I know. It's amazing.
I want to be in like a doo-wop band that sings about like everybody's doing the Cocoa Motion. Like,
do the Cocoa Motion.
Oh my god. Okay, Mr. Coffee, make this machine again. Hire us for your jingle. We're ready.
Yeah. I know. There's not going to be any copyright infringement with that song whatsoever.
No, just brand new, made it up right now.
Laura, tell me everything about what's going on with you, because you host not one, but 2 podcasts. I know that you've had another one in the past as well.
Yeah.
You're also a writer. I mean, there are just so many things going on with you. So give everyone a little briefing.
Sure. So I moved to New York to become very famous, and I'm still working on it, and I've gotten really far. So thank you for asking. But yes, so I spent a long time doing a lot of like very experimental theater, and then a couple years before the pandemic, like very fortuitously, I switched to romance writing, and I was like, oh, that worked out good when they shut everything down. But yeah, so I have been doing the Mermaid podcast for about 4 years. I have always been into mermaids, but the first 2 romances that I published were Little Mermaid inspired, like historical, like Little Mermaid if it was like actually set in the 1800s when the original one was written.
Nice.
And so I started doing the Mermaid podcast because I've always been into mythology and folklore and fairy tales, and I wanted to talk to like other. Oh, but people don't know is that like I had read that if you want to be a thought leader in your field, then like you needed to like pick something to be the thought leader on, and I was like, yes, I will be in charge of mermaids. Thank you.
I mean, no, for
Yeah.
real though. Like, talk about niche.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I am. My friend was like, wow, like overnight you became the world's foremost mermaid expert. I was like, yeah, nobody else was vying for the job, so I just got it.
P.S.
Like,
Before you continue, I have to tell you, if you don't already know, that the only reason I know this is because the day after I moved to Portland this year, there was a mermaid festival that they were doing here. So just so you know, if you ever are going to take your podcast on the road and go visit places where they're bringing mermaids to life, in public parks, Portland, Oregon is one of them.
I mean, no, thank you, because I know there are mermaid conventions and things, and I'm like, at some point, I've got to like get into the field with the people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started the Mermaid podcast to like kind of talk about mermaid books and mermaid things, and then and I was starting to publish my mermaid romances, and then at the beginning of this year, I have a friend. And so there's an astrologer. I don't know if people know about her, but she's like a very New York personality. Her name is Susan Miller, and she writes on astrologyzone.com. And I've read her for years, and like she's wild. She's just wild. Like her horoscopes are all over the place, but then every once in a while she will drop something so real. Like literally, like the first time I read her horoscope was when I found out about Mercury in retrograde, and she was like, back up your computer. And so I went to back up my computer like immediately, and it was already dead and didn't come back to life. So I was like, the oracle has spoken. So
The
I'm like,
universe.
yeah. So like I have believed her ever since, because that was like my first thing with her. And I used to live in an old building, and it had structural issues, and like we had to become evacuated, and then I had to move. And like she had been like, yeah, on August 16th, you might have problems with your retaining wall. And I was like, Susan, every 10 years you're on the nose.
Well, and I was going to say, like, how specific is that too? Where it's like it's not just like someone new will enter your life. It's like, you should go back up your computer because your files are in danger.
Well, and that's the thing, is like everything that's like vague, like something good might come to life, you might have like a opportunity, like is usually like doesn't come true, but when it's like dire, it does. So I'm always like nervous when she's predicting something bad. But so one of my friends, every time, and she's always late with her horoscopes, like days, weeks late. So one of my friends and I will always like bet on when she's gonna come out with that month's horoscope, and we would then like discuss all of it in our text messages. And then finally I was like, we're the foremost experts on Susan Miller. We should just have a podcast about her horoscopes. So that's how we started Astrology Zoned. And then we're like, okay, we're gonna start in January, and we're gonna like read our horoscopes. And like in the horoscope, for both of us, she was like, Taurus, you might start a podcast. Scorpio, you might start a podcast. And we were like, well, she told us, so we made one about her. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna have to check out Susan Miller. It sounds like if she doesn't already have it, is like very deserving of like the cult following fan base. Sure.
She really does. She has like events where like people show up. She'll do like these Instagram lives or things on Clubhouse, and it's like she's very generous. She spends like way too much. Like her horoscopes could be about 2,000 words long, and they're like 5,000 words long. Yeah, she's very generous with her knowledge. So she definitely has like, and she's millions of readers, she always says. So she has this like, definitely has like people who show up all the time. So she was doing she said she was doing something at a Louis Vuitton store. Really, we just went to go look at a 10-second video that was playing outside of the store. Anyway, she said there was like an event. Okay. So like my friend and I show up.
Event.
What? It was an event because she was there. Louis Vuitton did not know there was an event. And so my friend and I are like across the street being like, we look like creepers, like standing across the street being like, is Susan coming? And then she showed up, and then like out of the woodwork, people just kind of came from across the street. We're like, hi, Susan. And then we all like stood and talked to her for an hour. Like,
come play with us, Susan.
Yeah, a little bit like we're all creepers who just kind of like emerge from like the buildings. Hi, Susan. Like, but she's like, I knew my fans would show up, and I was like, I love that for you.
I love it. Well, and so obviously I'm guessing we can expect to see more episodes with both podcasts in 2022.
Yes, definitely.
Fabulous.
Yes, definitely. And then on the writing front, so very luckily during the pandemic, thank God, something to save me from utter despair and something to do is that one of my really good friends, her name is Erin Clark. She's a gorgeous writer. She is, I mean, you have to just follow her on the internet because there's no way to explain her, but she is like a world accomplished pole athlete, paraglider.
Nice.
She's a beautiful writer. She has a memoir that just came out that I helped title, and it's called If You Really Love Me, Throw Me Off the Mountain. And Erin is a wheelchair user, so like my favorite arc in this wheelchair in this book is how like when I knew her in New York, her wheelchair broke, and like she had to get it repaired. It was a whole big deal. She had a new chair, and then she got divorced, left New York, moved to Spain, took up paragliding, and then one of her friends helped her rebuild the chair into her glider for paragliding. So now this
Oh,
wheelchair just like people literally throw her off the mountain and she flies.
that's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah. So, and when she was living in New York, she's also an aerialist, and at that time, I was also an aerialist. I have not been training, but I got to get back to it because we want to have a book tour together, and perform. But anyway, we performed what we called aerial comedy. So we made up like long form skits, and then did like very intense aerial acts, like to like pepper them. And we were called Flaming Mermaid Broken Star. Um,
Great.
yeah, thank you. It was two moves that we knew, so we put their names together. Okay, great. Like, so anyway, she and I, like, I remember we were joking, like, you know, we'd be like stretching after like class, and we were like, oh, one day we'll write a romance together, and she's like, yeah, ha ha ha, and then we would go read like Cressley Cole together. Like, that was it. Okay.
Sure.
And so through like very fortuitous things, I like heard of an opportunity, I roped her in, so we got a contract from Audible, and we are writing, I believe it's an Audible original, and I believe it will be their first Audible original featuring a heroine that uses a wheelchair.
Oh,
So,
I love
yeah.
that.
So it's like written by like two friends, and it's gonna come out I think June 2022, and it's
Well,
called The
but
Breakup Artist.
that's too far away.
Tell me, I've been waiting to be so famous all year, and they keep pushing it back.
I was trying to be famous before the end of 2021.
Me too. I was like, it's fine. 2021, we'll just be like both really famous. And she's like, yeah, I'm ready for it. And then they keep be like, yeah, we're moving it out. Oh, guess what? We have a date. I'm like, ooh, and they're like, June. I'm like, it's June 2022. Oh, okay.
I love a good friendship story though. Like I love a good story that's like, oh yeah, we met and we were doing. I'm still reeling over the comedy aerialist, and we went from doing aerial comedy to writing an Audible original together.
Well, and like what we used to say, like, I mean, we were like a riot on stage. If you Google Flaming Mermaid Broken Star, some of our acts will pop up on YouTube.
Oh, and I will.
Yeah, we were just like, I mean, now when I look back at it, I'm like, I love this for us. Like, we were just like out of control and gave no fucks. So it was like, we'd be like, hello, welcome to our comeback show. It's our first show, but it's a comeback show. Anyway, like tonight we're gonna show you how we invented aerial comedy and aerial feminism. And here's a slideshow about princesses.
Yeah, because why not? I mean, you're speaking to a theater kid too, so like this makes perfect sense to me.
Totally.
Like none of this sounds outrageous to me at all. Also, I would love to see more romance in the future feature aerial artists, because pole artists too. Like honestly, just any of the like circus acrobatic arts. I want to say I read a short story from one of the best women's erotica of the year volumes that featured like silk artists getting it on like in the silks, and I was like, ooh, yes, this is fantastic.
Ooh. That's one that I think I would like to do. I should think about it harder. I think one thing of having done them is knowing how much pain you're in while you're doing aerial makes it be like I guess it could be like BDSM then, but I was like, it's like I don't know if I could like get fucked while hanging upside down because I barely lived the first time.
Well, that might turn someone on.
I mean, I think we could really go in a direction there, and I will consider it and think very hard on this. And don't you worry, everyone. I will get on this. If Audible wants to give us any more contracts for like flying feminists,
perfect.
Like, I'll
the
do
Witch
it.
of Wall Street. I'm telling you, there's your next pitch.
The Witch of Wall Street. Like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like you have a lot to look forward to in 2022. Well, we have a lot to look forward to because you're sharing it with all of us, which is the gift that just keeps on giving.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm excited that you're joining me here today. And unfortunately, we will not be discussing aerial artists of any kind in this book. I mean, it's the one thing this book is missing, like really. But
You're right. Well, I'll just write The Spirit of Flying Christmas and then look for Laura Lovely 2022, The Spirit of Flying Christmas.
We'll see it back in 2022 Boobsmas.
Yeah, when I finally write the other Christmas thing I was going to write, which is, if I ever write it, will be called Jingle Beard, and there's a whole thing for it. Yeah, next year I'll come back on Boobsmas.
Okay. There we go. Its plan is in motion.
Great. Thank you. I really like accountability and external pressure. So now that I've told the whole internet that I'm going to write it, I'm like, I have to do it.
It's real now. It has to happen.
Yeah. But let's talk about a book that somebody did write.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And again, we will get to the Ariel Christmas and Jingle Beards in the future,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
for today, our reading selection is Lost and Found in Copper Ridge by Harlow James. And
Yay.
this contemporary, what I'm calling a snowed in with a stranger romance, was published in November 2021, just last month, and it's available on Amazon for $2.99 Kindle edition. Oh, and good news, today's giveaway winner, who by the time this episode airs will have already been announced, will be taking home a paperback copy of this book. Thank you, Harlow James, for providing that. So a little extra holiday reading just in time for Christmas.
Great. Congratulations, lucky winner.
Yeah, whoever you are. Hooray!
Yeah, hooray.
And so let me go ahead and I will give, that sounded British. I will give the brief, not so brief, Goodreads synopsis for this book, and then we will dive into our discussion. So it starts as most great synopses begins, and that is with, it all started with Jack and Diane. And no, not the couple from the popular 80s song, the couple that signed a $5 bill with their names and the location of the Livingston Cabin in Copper Ridge, Colorado. And I just so happened to acquire that $5 bill on the same day of the funeral of a close friend and the day I was supposed to be getting married. Coincidence? Perhaps. A sign? I think so. After a short internet search, I found the cabin in question and wasted no time booking a trip for myself to the magical house tucked high in the mountains. But apparently, someone else wanted to experience the Livingston Cabin during the same 10 days as I did, and he was hotter than sin. Carson took 5 years off of my life when I discovered him in my place of solitude, but he also became Santa's helper as he opened me up to more fun and adventure than I ever thought possible. That phrasing.
He did. Okay.
Phrasing.
Yeah.
He opened a lot of things up.
Yep.
The magic of Copper Ridge cast a spell over us for those 10 days, and then one question remained when our time was up. Did we find love just like Jack and Diane did all those years ago, or were we both still lost after our stay in Copper Ridge? Okay, I'm going to say first and foremost, I did really enjoy this book. I will say you have to really believe in or be willing to suspend your disbelief to believe in the concept of like fate in order, I think, to really enjoy this book. Because let me tell you, I have been doing a rewatch of the TV show Castle, and the amount of times that they use the phrase like, there's no such thing as coincidences, like in that show. And this is how every murder show has trained me, is like, there's no coincidences, right? It's always one thing tied to the other. This is one of those books that's like got coincidence after coincidence, or is it fate? Like they book this cabin the same day for the same amount of time. What's another one? I feel like
there's a big spoiler at the end which also ties all of it together.
Oh,
so.
yeah, of the whole idea of like who Jack and Diane
are, yeah.
And that's, it's very much a story about fate, which I feel like we do see fate and destiny like tied to Christmas and like the holiday season in general, like just being like
the
a magical time. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where I feel like if it didn't take place during Christmas, I would have had a difficult time with, because I am like hardened at heart. And so because it takes place at Christmas, I was perfectly okay with it. So
yes, and I would agree. I think I like halfway through I was like, oh, this is a fated mates trope, but it's really hard to pull off fated mates in contemporary romance. Like it's super easy for paranormal, or even historical, you can like let a lot of things slide, but like fated mates is very hard to pull off in contemporary. And I think like you're right that the magic of Christmas kind of lends itself to that. And there's multiple coincidences that happen. And I'm halfway through, I was like, they're not tying one end up, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be another fated destiny.
That's a great way to think of it, though, is like, and I can't think of like other contemporary romances that I've read that use the fated mates trope unless it takes place at Christmas. Like, because I do think it's that magic of Christmas that we're just already cultured to believing in, that
And like
because of that.
the whole Hallmark like Christmas movie industry is based basically on a fated mates of like, it's always a coincidence that they showed back up in town. It's always a coincidence that I spilled my coffee on you. You know, like it's all coincidence, and it's like the magic of Christmas just like makes it happen.
Interfering again. That
totally. And
that
then like
magical
you know, like,
Christmas bitch, man. She is everywhere.
Totally. There's some old lady like winking and then like glitter falls all around her. You know? Like, yeah. So I would say if you are also, especially if you're an author looking to, I mean, I think I'm always looking at this from a bit of a writing perspective, but if you're an author looking to do fated mates, like Christmas is one of your best bets for being able to like.
It's true. Yeah. Because I can't think of another situation in which it would like really work out where there wasn't some element of like paranormal or like magic or fantasy like tied into it.
I think probably some inspirational romances can do it because they can use spirituality as like the fated thing, but for a straight up secular, well, I don't want to say it's secular because Christmas is not a secular holiday,
right?
But culturally secular, I guess. Like Christmas is your best bet.
Yeah. But anyway, that's just something I wanted to preface it with, because I know I'm sure there's a lot of people who, when they do read their holiday romance, are like, oh yeah, of course, like magic of Christmas, you know. But again, I am like a jaded, you know, pessimistic person like a lot of the time. And so this is something that I think if it wasn't tied to Christmas, I would have had a much harder time swallowing this pill. However, because it is tied to Christmas, I did really just kind of like jump in full throttle. And I will say like my holiday rating will be very high for this book because it is like very holiday centric.
Yep, it hits like all of the holiday classics, like things you'd want to see in a holiday movie, like definitely. And I was also going to say, like, I was glad that the fated thing got kind of tied up at the end, because in the first couple chapters, I was like, this author is doing a lot of work to get this lady to a cabin. Like, really, we don't need to work that hard. Usually it's just like, you got a cabin, you know, like
done.
And I was like, oh my God, the first chapter, like she's about to attend a funeral. That's so Reese is the heroine, and I just tell this joke now that it came to my head. So she's a redhead, and I write a lot of redheaded men. They're just like a special fondness in my heart there. And then when you were just giving the intro and being like lost and found in Copper Ridge, I was like, she's a redhead.
I didn't even think about that.
Anyway, sorry. So if anybody else here has a little thing for redheads, it's just a secret between you and me. But so Reese, she works in convalescent homes, and she has a woman who's become a good friend who has passed away and gave her this like great cookie recipe. And so she's going to go to the funeral, and she stops to buy some candy. I forget why she's getting chocolate. Because Ruth liked it.
Yeah, peppermint patties.
Yeah, right. Like that's the thing later. Yeah. So she buys peppermint patties, and she gets this $5 bill back, and it says like Jack and Diane, Livingston Cabin, Copper Ridge, Colorado, and like some date, you know. And she's like, weird. What's on this $5 bill? And then you kind of find out that she has called off. Ruth had encouraged her to call off her wedding when like gave her some real talk, like, girl, you're not into your fiance. So she's called off her wedding, and it's the day of Ruth's funeral, coincidentally, is the day of her canceled wedding.
That's where the coincidences begin, right there.
That's where they begin. And then coincidentally, she gets this $5 bill with this name of this cabin. So I mean, I just like saying coincidentally, like we're all surprised, but we're not.
It's fate.
It's fate.
Yeah, no, it honestly is a very cute setup. It's kind of like a modern day like message in a bottle sort of thing, where it's like, ooh, you know, this fell into my hands at like the exact right time that I, you know, emotionally, spiritually like needed something different, a change.
Yeah.
And look, here it is. I'll go there. And yeah, it's pretty cute. What I liked a lot about this book was, you know, kind of what you already mentioned, Laura, where it touches on a lot of like the trademarks we see in a lot of like holiday romances, both on, you know, Hallmark and Netflix, but also in books. We've got the heroine who has her bucket list of items to do, which include re-falling in love with just the Christmas season in general.
She needs to learn the meaning of Christmas. That's how you fall in love. You cannot fall in love unless you know the meaning of Christmas. That's why I need someone to teach me the meaning of Christmas so I can fall in love. I take notes on these things, okay? Like, I've been watching these movies. I know the formula, and I need somebody else to help me with it. Yeah.
Yes, there needs to be a like conduit of sorts to like
Yes,
help you get there.
please. Yes.
And then we have, I mean, we've got gingerbread decorating. We have got, which by the way, I love that scene because there's a moment where they enter a gingerbread decorating contest and he gets like really into it and she's like, wow, I didn't realize that like men decorating gingerbread houses like vigorously was my kink. And I'm like, oh my God, that was probably my favorite line in the whole book.
Yeah. She's like, he's so into it. And also he's about to like lose it because it's not going well. It's not going well. And I was like, oh, it's like it's kind of like those like baking shows where like if a couple can pull this off together, they'll like definitely be able to do something else, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so this one's. We also have like carriage riding.
Yes.
There's Christmas tree decorations.
There's a festival.
Festival of a festival.
Mm-hmm. I do like that they get a little sporty, that like there's some snowboarding in that he's like a massive snowboarder, but then also takes her out because she's like interested in learning how to snowboard. I was like, oh, that's really sweet. Like I don't see a lot of, considering how much snow is in like holiday romances, I don't usually see them engaging in sports, like winter sports. So like, I thought that was nice.
Yeah, usually the snow is just there to trap them together, and then you're like, you forget that people go to snowy places on purpose to do things there.
To do things.
To do things. I mean, they did a lot. I actually did appreciate, so there's like this classic Snowden trope of like, okay, so what happens is she gets to her, she's like, oh, Ruth, like after her funeral, I've got to live my life. I'll make my bucket list and I'll book this cabin. They came with this $5 bill. Looks cute on the internet. Great.
Yeah.
She books it. She arrives. She's been planning. It's great. She's got her whole thing list, what she wants to do there. She goes to take a shower. Again, classic. Everyone's always got to bathe in a romance novel because like inciting incidents cannot happen if you aren't bathing first. Okay. Rule of romance. Okay. So she goes to take a shower and then like comes out of the shower and like runs into the like brick wall of a chest of a former Air Force.
Which personally I appreciate because I did a ghostwriting gig last year and my meet cute was somebody like running into somebody while like wearing a towel fresh from the shower. I'm like, I love a good classic. I prefer it over the like spilling coffee on someone. I'm like, yeah, make one of them naked. That's totally great.
Exactly. And I also, this is again where I also appreciate romance. So it turns out that they had both, so Carson is the hero and he had, his grandparents had said, oh, you should book this cabin for like a getaway because he's recently divorced. So it's kind of like he needs his own, I don't know, healing journey through snow and cabins. So
sure.
Sure. I forget why they told him to. They just told him to do it. So he did it because he loves his grandparents. So, and like, you know, they're like, oh no, we've booked this together. Oh no, the snow is too much. Like we have to spend at least one night together. But there are 2 beds.
Yes.
There were 2 beds. Just want to let you, 2 beds soon become 1 bed, but there are 2 beds to start with. Okay. And this is where I love romance because like, as a single woman who has traveled extensively and booked houses by myself, if I walked out of a shower and ran into a man, I don't care how hot he is, like the owners of the cabin would be hearing from me that like a strange man could enter like while I was in the shower. But in romance, you're like, oh, like, it's very exciting. You know, like
I did love that. You know, one of the things on her bucket list is to, you know, finish reading the book she's reading and everything. And she gives Carson a good schooling on romance novels, which I always appreciate in romance when they somehow find a way to like discuss romance in the book. I'm like, yes, you lay it in there. You put it in there. I love it.
And I also like that for some reason. So one, she kept talking about a particular author, and I Googled it to see if that was a real author. And I feel like I haven't read her other books, so I didn't know if this is a recurring, if like Mackenzie Daniels is like the Danielle Steele of her world, and this comes up all the time. Could be, because she and her, so Wendy is the best friend that she talks to on the phone all the time. They are always discussing Mackenzie Daniels, but I couldn't find a Mackenzie Daniels. But what I also like about this moment where he's like, aren't you just reading them for the sex? Which she does kind of be like, well, yeah, but I can't read books without sex. And I was like, yeah, like fair. But what I liked is like there's this whole paragraph where she's like explaining to him how like emotionally important, and like the plot and like how progressive they are and da da da. And I'm like, it is every every person who has like a niche interest, especially if it's like one that's kind of denigrated, has this fantasy that like the person you love will become immediately aroused and interested in you when you describe minute details of your niche interest to them. They're gonna be like, yeah, wow.
Meanwhile, he's like cooking dinner. He's like,
right.
oh, okay,
cool. But I was like, no, all of us are like, yes, you just have to tell a man about how much the romance novel is, and they're gonna be like, I respect the genre now, thank you. Like, I think you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to say, I really did appreciate like both of their characters. Like first of all, it doesn't take place at Christmas time, which it's like early December, which I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But like, they make a point of saying like, that's all that's really available when they booked it. And also, they're each going to go home and do their own Christmas traditions. But I like that they talk about like the differences in like their families and everything. Like for Reese, for her, she's grown up with like divorced parents. And so ever since her parents were divorced, like she's kind of felt this, weird separation from the holidays of like, spending part of it with her mom and whoever her mom is with, and her dad and whoever her dad is with. And then for Carson, he was married very early and divorced also before the age of like 25. So, I mean, that's a character I feel like you don't see a lot, is like the one who like gets married very, very early on and then it doesn't work out. Like, because usually in the world of romance, if they're getting married that young, it's like the one, the one that kind of like how Jack and Diane are, like the ones on the dollar bill or the $5 bill who we eventually do, find out are his grandparents. Ha ha!
They fell in love at the Livingston Cabin.
Yeah, when they were very young.
They're very
coincidentally. But yeah, I liked that they both had like some personal and like family stuff to just sort of like overcome. And I think that's the heavier hitting emotional stuff is hardest to deal with like during the holidays. So I was like, okay, this feels very real to me. Like this feels like very, very much like something that you could be dealing with like leading up to the holiday season. And then to just get away from it and have this time that should be on your own, but ends up being with a hot stranger and gingerbread. Why not?
Yeah. And it was kind of nice that it was like, it's kind of like a second chance romance, but it's like their second chance in life. They like very young, they had like major romantic disappointments. And it's not just the kind of where it's like, I dated a few bad guys, but she's like, I called off my wedding.
Right.
And he like divorced, like kind of the first woman he'd ever fell in love with, And so like, and they both are like a little embarrassed by like that fact. They have like some shame around it. And so like when they get to open up and tell each other about that, like, I think it's nice that like for both of them, it's nice to hear that somebody else also has like, quote unquote like failed relationship in their
because those are I feel like those are both like things that we do place a lot of shame on in real life in general, is just like maybe not necessarily calling off a wedding, but I guess calling off a wedding though with somebody where you're like, this person is like fine, like there's nothing wrong with them, but just I like that they kind of go into like how she's like, well, our relationship was like very complacent, like we were just kind of like comfortable with each other, but also like nothing really more than that. And then for him to have been fallen in love and been divorced before 25, I think I always think of like the way they portrayed like Ross's character on Friends, and how like every time he got divorced it was just like another way to make fun of him. And I'm like, looking back on it, that was not a healthy way for them like, to like discuss that.
Divorce should not be like humiliating. Like, especially the people in this book made like very healthy choices around it. It was like, we were too young, we grew apart, we got divorced. She was like, I managed to avoid like being miserable thanks to my good friend Ruth, who gave me this cookie recipe and some wise life advice.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, Ruth. Ruth is a real one in this book. Yeah,
she is. She's a gem. She's a gem. Yeah, I liked both of their character set up, and then I have to say there was a special place in my heart for the fact that they really love the movie The Wedding Singer, because I love The Wedding Singer. Like when it comes on TV and she's watching The Wedding Singer, I'm like, oh my God, The Wedding Singer. I love that movie. I had no idea that it would become so important to the story, because
it is
lo and behold, we have
the grand gesture.
Yeah, we have the grand gesture of him singing Adam Sandler's song from that final scene of Wedding Singer, which if anybody's seen it, you'll know exactly which one it is. And then if you haven't, I highly recommend watching it. Don't let the fact that Adam Sandler is the star deter you from watching it, because this was like when he made good movies.
Yeah. It's like prime good Adam Sandler. Plus, it's Drew Barrymore who like can really carry a lot of the romantic comedy. So you can just trust in Drew Barrymore, ignore Adam Sandler's 80s haircut, and just like live your life. Yeah.
It was so good. And honestly, I had that same thought like when watching that movie for many, many years. Like that scene, that final scene when he like serenades her. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like such a cute, but also like what I loved about that one versus like so many grand gestures in movies is that he made the song like so low key and like personal. Like, I'll let you hold the remote control and we'll go to bed. I'll put you to bed when you've had too much to drink. Like I'm like, it's not like I'm gonna buy you diamond rings and shit. It's very much like a grown up, sweet, you know, a comfortable relationship that I love.
And what works about the wedding singer part of that too is that like Adam Sandler is a wedding singer. You know, he's no Bruno Mars. He's like he's a very average small town wedding singer. So when he comes on with like just singing a cute little song like Plunky Plunk on his guitar in an airplane, and like the flight attendants and the everyone on the plane is like helping him pull off this like proposal via song, like, and the fact that it's such a like kind of low key song really works in his favor. You're not going to believe it if he suddenly becomes like ultra glamorous. Like no, like his geekiness is like the really enduring, and so like and it's a really heartfelt moment. And so I like that they watched it together, and then it came back as like another public singing grand gesture.
I've got another opportunity for you to say coincidentally, and that is when we come to the third act, when we have the breakup moment, where, you know, they're just about to have their conversation about like, well, the good thing is that they live in the same town. Like, it's not even like
when they casually mention there, I was like, oh great, and then they kept being like, what will happen? What will happen? I'm like, you'll live in the same town.
I'm like, you live in the same town. There's not even an issue anymore.
Like, if I can get a mermaid and a prince together, like you guys just like talk it out, it'll be fine.
Yeah. But they're about to basically have the conversation where it's like, do we want to continue seeing each other beyond the cabin? When, hooray, her now ex-fiance calls her up and is like, hey, we should talk. So, of course, you know, Carson interprets that to just
first
mean,
of all,
like, we're done.
She takes the call, which I'm like, girl, we do not take. And first of all, when that happened, I was like, number one, mother flying farts. Fucker. Men always call you right when you're doing really well with somebody else. Like they have like some weird pheromonal sense, and they're like, oh, she's having like a really good sex and like is emotionally fulfilled. Let me call in just in case she wants to like come back.
That is, by the way, if you, I know you're a theater person, if you haven't seen it, there's a musical like super low key off Broadway called I Love You Because, and it's like a reimagining of Pride and Prejudice as a musical where it takes place in like modern day New York, and they like reverse it. So like I think the female character's name is Marcy, and the male character's name is and then he's Austin, and but they sing a whole song where they're like, when you pretend like you've moved on and you're meeting other people, that's when your ex comes back, because they have a sick sense, not a sixth sense, sick sense.
Yeah. And definitely Doug is like a Wickham in this sense. He's just like,
he's totally the Wickham.
Yeah, totally the Wickham. But yeah, so he calls her. She takes the call. I'm like, no, we don't take these phone calls. We don't take these phone calls. Right as they're about to have their big talk.
Yep.
And of course, Carson's like, she took the phone call. That's it. It's over. And he like gets in his truck and is like, well, nice 10 days licking chocolate off you. Adios.
And then the real coincidence comes in when he can't call her. He can't receive her phone calls because he shatters his phone. Oh, well, shouldn't he just get a new phone, you might be wondering? Well, yes, he does go and get a new phone. First of all, he has to wait a very long time for it.
Yeah, because it's the holidays and they're totally sold out because people like bought them as Christmas gifts or something. Yeah. And so like, so it's going to be 10 days. And then
on top of that, he doesn't understand the cloud. Technology wins once again.
Yeah. And this is where I was like, ugh. But then I also was like, I have a lot of empathy for this because like as a contemporary writer, like the miscommunication trope is hard in general. Miscommunication can mean like all Carson had to do was wait around 5 minutes for him to be like, that was a lame phone call. Anyway, so do you guys want to see each other? Right. But instead he was like, rah, 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 I'll just interpret this and like, man off. And then secondarily, like, there's so many ways you can get a hold of people now and all that like the phone being delayed and all that like has to get really exaggerated, and you have to think of like I also wrote like a miscommunication thing where like his phone died, so she wrote down a piece of paper, and then housekeeping gave it away, and then I was like, but they could fucking Google each other. So then I had to make up all these things why they couldn't Google each other and how hard they tried to Google each other and how like one of them hadn't have social media off and like
and that's exactly what Harlow James did too. She definitely was like, okay, I need to find all the ways to explain that like there's no way for these people to like get in touch with each other. He knows they know each other's first names. They don't know last names. He knows she works for a convalescent home. He doesn't know which one. She's not on social media. His phone is shattered. When he gets his phone back, Cloud didn't save her number. It's
also she had tried to call him and text him, and then she was like, I'm going to give this 10 days and then I won't try anymore. And of course, day 11 is when he gets his phone back.
Right.
So.
Of course. So I mean,
like, yeah, I don't love it because you're like, but like you need
I don't love it either, but I do
don't
understand.
like,
I understand the reasoning behind it.
It's just hard. It's really hard because I'm like, I'm sure Harlow James was like, I don't like this either. There's way too like it used to be so much easier when it was just like my cat like licked my answering machine and now it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. The end.
The end. You know, like the telegram message deliverer got shot. I don't know. You know, like it's
wow, that took a dark turn.
Well, sorry, I don't know. I'm thinking Wild West.
The cat licking the answering machine to the telegram delivery person being shot. I
was thinking of like the Pony Express or something like in Westerns.
Got it.
Like,
okay.
Sorry. Not like FedEx driver. I love you, FedEx. I would never want you to come to harm. No, I was thinking of like in historicals when it's like she sent the telegram, but then it, like never arrived because he got shot or
I understand.
Or by snow. Sorry, he got delayed by snow. Everyone lived. I'm so sorry. Romance is happy. It's not a dark romance.
No shootings of any kind.
No shootings. There was no mafia. It was fine.
No people or animals were harmed in the making of this book.
No, the horse always lives. Are you kidding me? It's fine.
Yeah. No, that's and you know what? The whole third act, like the miscommunication thing is a tough one for me in general. So like inherently when it's there, I'm already like not super into it. But I think you're right. I think there's just a lot of it's hard to like explain but you do have to like basically explain all the different outcomes in order for us to like kind of stay with you on that one. But I do think there's a great payoff in that. They had already kind of like had this moment earlier in the book where they're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like come back to this bar on New Year's Eve for karaoke? And for that to be like what draws them back there, where it's like he doesn't know where she lives. He doesn't know how to get in touch with her, but he has like a strong feeling that like she will still be at that New Year's Eve event. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I do like that payoff. I appreciate that. Although I kept wondering, I'm like, who the hell has not sung or been to a karaoke event like ever?
I know that was literally like, no, I never have. And I was like, I really think she just spent a lot of time at the convalescent home with Ruth because like she was like, I haven't snowboarded, I haven't done this, I like gave up on Christmas, and I was like, wow.
And you live in Colorado. You live in Colorado, and you're telling me you've never been like snowboarding or skiing or like had some sort of winter excursion. I
was like, okay, but then I couldn't remember if she had lived somewhere else too, and then I was like, you know what, I've skied but I haven't snowboarded, so I have to give it to her. So
okay, there you go. It is Colorado Springs, so I mean I think that's more southern, like more in like the desert region of Colorado, so I guess you're farther from snow, but still
she was really busy at the convalescent home making friends, making sure these people had like a comfortable end of life experience,
giving them their peppermint patties.
She like, and then Doug was, I think we can actually blame this on Doug because Doug sounds like the most boring Wickham to ever boring Wickham.
He does not sound like somebody that would be encouraging you to like hit the slopes.
I think if he like decided to rewatch one of his shows slightly out of order, it was a crazy day.
Like, we're going to skip episode 3 and go to episode 4. Like, whoo!
Yeah.
Doug probably watched Castle.
Yeah, and according to like her sexual experience, I think that Doug did a lot of skipping episode 3. He always went right for 4.
He went straight to 4, skipped
to 4.
1, 2, 3,
3.
everything before
Yes.
that. And you know what? Didn't even make it through the full episode. He made it through like the opening credits.
Yeah. Doug was not a performance. Doug was not a high performer. Let's just say that.
Since you brought up the sexcapades,
Yes.
as we call them on this podcast, do you have a favorite sexcerpt that you'd like to discuss and or share? And I will say there are several to choose from.
Several.
Like, I do think there was a great balance between the heat and the romance in this book. Like, and that's something that I think is dramatically lacking in a lot of holiday romance. I don't know who got the memo that holiday romance also can't be hot, because it can.
Hallmark After Dark is really the only thing I want. I want the Hallmark trope with the After Dark experience.
We got it. Yeah. We got it in spades in this book.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. One thing I appreciate is they had like a first confession of love in front of a Christmas tree, which is like cute. And I think they kissed kind of like around then too, which was like nice. But my favorite, so I have been skiing and stayed at some nice ski houses with hot tubs and was like, gee, I really wish I could take advantage of this opportunity. And so when I heard there was a hot tub, I was like, yeah. So they do quite a bit of canoodling in the hot tub, and I really appreciated that. Like, so one thing I appreciated is, number one, he always brings out like a glass of wine for her when they're in the hot tub, and I was like, thank you.
He's honestly, in general, he's very considerate. Like, this man is up in the morning, coffee is already made. He is making breakfast. He cooks for her. He makes sure she's like warm enough, like get you your blanket, have your wine ready. Like, he is like an ideal caregiver partner.
He's definitely like an acts of service. And also, breakfast is my personal love language because I'm not a morning person. So like every time he made breakfast, I was like so good. And in the epilogue, she's like, and he makes breakfast every day. And I'm like, that's the best thing they've said the whole book.
Yeah. Sold.
So I did really like that they have a hot tub moment and she has an orgasm in the hot tub, and I was like A+. And they go in the shower, and I'm like, it's very considerate. He's like, we have to warm up, so they're in the shower before they have sex for the first time. And so that one I just liked in general. And then the one that made me just like giggle and be like, oh, romance is too much sometimes. Is there this whole time she's gonna be baking these cookies that Ruth makes, so there's all this like baking.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
And, like, so like, you know, when the first few days before they like were amorous, like he saw some chocolate and wanted to like lick it off of her. So then they get out the chocolate and they're like licking off of each other. And then like, so this is just one of those like weird romance things where you're like, as a writer, I'm sure I've grossed somebody out too. But anyway, so like they're licking chocolate off each other. She like gives him a blowjob, licks the chocolate off, and then he puts the condom on when they have sex. And for some reason, I just got like nervous about like the leftover sugar. And I was like, is he gonna be okay?
But you know what? I felt better about the fact that he was putting a condom on as opposed to just like chocolate covered dick like straight in the vagina, because I'm like, that is
also I was like totally
UTI waiting to happen.
UTI I was like, oh, and then he put a condom on. I was like, okay, great. I was like, I don't know that I would love to have a condom over my like sticky chocolate dick, but I think it's better than like raw dogging the hot chocolate dog. Yes. So I was like, okay, yeah,
raw dogging the hot chocolate dong. Well, if that's not a quote from this episode, I don't know what is.
I mean, that it puts the motion in Coco motion. Just to bring it back. Okay. So,
yeah, no, I'm with you. I will say, I think one of my favorite things about this book, and also just like a lot of the books I'm seeing coming out now circa 2021, is sort of like the self-awareness that characters have, where, you know, the characters themselves will comment on things, if it's not out loud, at least like in their own internal dialogue, where they'll be like, ooh, thank God we put on a condom because I don't want a UTI. Like, I'm like, right. Love it. I love that we're on the same page. And for this one, it was the consent level.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, he was always checking, like reaffirming consent and checking in on her. And she was also noting, like, I love that he keeps like asking consent. And like,
he kept doing it.
Yeah, mid-act.
I loved, like, as they were still having sex, like they're in the middle of having sex. Is this good? Like, if you turned around, does this work for you?
Yeah.
Are you going to come? How can I help get you there? I'm like, ooh, a man with
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, no, I was like,
Love
this
it.
is some great, like, some people, if you just want to like copy paste from this book and send a script to like your partners, like,
Yeah.
it was just like, here's some lines to get you started if you need some examples. So I was like, good.
I've got a little sexcerpt from there
Okay,
that I
please.
do want to share. This is like
Great.
the same. I think this is the same scene as when she did already lick the chocolate off his dick, and now they're like getting frisky in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I mean, honestly, I could go from like any part of this, but I think at this point he's turned her around, so now she's facing the counter, and he's coming from
first
behind.
First she was sitting on the counter and she was having a great time. Then like she gave him a blowjob. Then he's like, oh, the counter goes this way too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the amount of dialogue in this that I just really enjoy, and it's not even that it's like dirty talk. It's just the fact that there's so much communication happening. And I'll start from, I can feel him slow down his thrusts, the power behind me ebbing as his breathing grows heavy in my ear. Are you close? Yes, I say, feeling that familiar flutter building in my core. Can I touch you? Help you get there? He whispers. And I can't deny that even in this carnal moment of escalating need, Carson still remains a gentleman. I'm pretty sure he just licked chocolate off of me, but he's still asking for consent, and it only makes me fall for him even more. Please. The smooth movement of his hand over my hip to between my legs has goosebumps building along my skin. His touch so nerve-bending that I gasp as soon as his finger makes contact with my clit. You are so perfect. You make me feel like I'm losing control, Reese. You make me feel that way too. Oh, it's so
that's sweet. No, that's
so
very sweet.
And it's still hot too.
It's hot and very romantic.
Yeah. So I really did love the sex scenes in this book. Like I like that we had some like grinding in the hot tub. I love that they take a shower together before they even have like penetrative sex.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. Like, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely did. One other thing I love that was like, you know, there's always like the levels of establishing like attraction and physical tension. Like, and like, it's just another classic along with like the Christmas lights and things is for the first time she sees him, she runs straight into him. Then like at some point she almost falls on him. They're snowboarding. She like knocks him over, you know, and I was like, oh, all the classic things of a like, oh, sorry, I fell on top of you. And then your eyes are so blue. Our hearts are pounding. You know, I'm always like, yes, love it. Love the like, oh, no, we touched.
I also like that he has the balls to like say, I like you. Like there's like actually a moment where he's like, he runs away for like a hot second and he comes back and he's like, yeah, I was scared. But like, honestly, it's because I like you. And she's like, oh, I like you too. I'm like, oh. You mean people are saying what they're feeling? Well, what?
He says I like you in front of a Christmas tree, and then they're at the festival. And I have to say this just because it's now been a week since Taylor's version of Red came out. He buys her a scarf and gives it to her.
Yep.
And she gets to keep it.
She gets to keep it. It doesn't get left behind.
No. And then we find out Jack and Diane also met buying a scarf. And that's where the $5 bill came back. That was the change. Coincidentally, Jack bought Diana a scarf, and that $5 bill is like what they wrote that thing on that Reese found at the gas station. So
it's cute. There's a lot of payoff, like as far as like, you know, the scarf goes and the Jack and Diane note goes. There's more of that. There's another thing with a dollar bill later on that ties into the ending. We have the wedding singer and their karaoke. He sings the wedding singer. Like, I mean, there's a lot of great things that I feel like we're all tied up in the end. Like it maybe took a little while to get there, but I do appreciate the fact that Harlow James did everything kind of seemed to have a rhyme and a reason to it.
Yes, and I'm especially glad too because the first chapter was like a lot's really happened to this
for
cabin.
Sure.
But then it was all for a reason.
It all was meant to be.
Yes, it was in fact the reason for the season.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, do you have any other notes, or should we wrap up by giving this book a few grades?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say the last thing I was gonna say is the epilogue has a proposal. And
Yes.
I was reading that and I was like, this would make such a good, like, this would go crazy on TikTok. This would be such a cute little TikTok.
It was a cute
Yeah,
one
a
for
very
sure
cute
too. Like, and
proposal.
I'm
Yeah.
down with the proposal in an epilogue. The
Yeah.
proposal in the book itself is usually not my favorite.
Yeah.
So
Especially in a contemporary, it's like, oh, too
yeah,
soon. Yeah.
I'm glad that they waited.
And he got married very quickly to his first wife because he was in the
Yes.
service and it like had to go abroad. And so yeah, it was sometime later. So yeah, that's the only thing I'm gonna say. Like we can do some ratings. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, for this podcast, we regularly rate for heart, humor, and heat on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it can possibly be, for you at least. And because, 'tis the season, we've also added a holiday rating because
Oh yeah.
I am a sucker for that alliteration.
Great.
So what's one more H, right?
Yep.
So let's start with heart, scale of 1 to 10. What do you think?
Oh, I think it was very heartfelt, and the fact that there was extra Christmas heart stuff in there, I would give it like a solid 8.
Yeah,
heart. Yeah.
I was gonna go like 8 or 9 on this one, because not only is there like the romantic relationship between the two of them, but there's a lot of family tie-in and like her relationship with like Ruth, I thought was like really really nice. That kind of guided throughout the story. So yeah, I think I guess I'll split the difference and say 8.5.
Great.
Humor, on the other hand, I'm curious about this one because it's not necessarily what I would think of as like a laugh out loud rom-com. However, there's fun moments, there's cute moments, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, there's some funny moments and like, there's the clumsy falling down stuff. There's like and there's like some quirky town characters that have personality, but it wasn't like it was charming, but I wouldn't say that it was hilarious.
That's the word, charming.
Yeah, so I would give it like a 7 on the humor.
Oh, okay. And honestly, that's a little more generous than
Okay.
mine is. I was going to give it probably closer to like a 5. But
Okay. Yeah.
again, not a negative thing. Not
Yeah.
every book has to be uproarious.
Yeah, uproarious. Yeah, I mean the fact that I even smiled, I think, is why I have it because I've read lots of books where the whole time I'm just like meh. Meh.
Yeah.
I was like, sometimes I'd be like,
That's true. That is
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'll bump it up to a 6.
great, great.
Now, how about the heat?
The heat. Okay, so I mean, first of all, it gets pointed just the fact there was heat because I did have a moment of being like, oh no, it's our Christmas and they're not going
Right.
to do it. Yeah,
It's sad that that's like our initial
yeah.
thought too, is that
No,
because
totally.
it's a Christmas book, there probably won't be heat.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
change that.
And it's even though it's explicit, it's not the most explicit or like the horniest book I've ever read, but like it is well done and like
Yeah.
it is like good sex and they have good sex and they communicate well through it. So I think I'll give it another 8.
Yeah, and especially just thinking about some of the other books that we've read for Boobsmas thus far. I mean, we read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. We read Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me by ML Eliza, aka Marie Lipscomb. I mean, if that one was like a 12, and so comparatively speaking, I'm like, well, it can't be up there. But I will say I do agree with what you said that they have good sex, which I really do appreciate. This is one of those ones where I would say that like in general, the heat ranking for me would probably be closer to like a 7, but personal scale, like the heat that I want to read about, it's like a 9 or a 10, like because this is the kind of sex that I want to read about. So that consent level, man, oof, it's so
Yeah.
sexy to me.
Well, and if you're coming from like a Tessa Bailey place, it's also like this would be like a pure and virginal book compared
Yeah.
to like Tessa
For
Bailey.
sure.
But like, yeah.
For sure.
So I wouldn't like if we were giving it Chili Peppers, I'd be like it's a solid 3 to 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
But, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But,
Well, and then how about the holiday ranking?
Okay, so I think obviously holiday category nails it. Like the only thing that they don't, the only non-holiday moment is that their dark moment happens during Christmas, so they're not physically together
True.
on Christmas. They don't reunite until New Year's Eve.
Mhm.
So for that, I would have to give it a 9.5. If they were together on Christmas, it would be solid 10. Yeah.
There was part of me, and I couldn't think of what it was until you just said it. I was like, they do so many holiday activities. They're snowed in the mountains. They're decorating things. But there's something that's still holding me back from giving it the full 10. And I think that's it. I think it's the fact that there's the separation between their getaway and New Year's where you
Yeah.
actually have Christmas and you know, we don't actually see them like do New Year's together or anything like that, but activity wise, I mean, I'm with you. I'm going to stick with a 9.5, and I hate to be that person that's like,
Yeah.
we're docking it that 0.5,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I feel like it's just missing that one little thing, but what's there is festive as fuck.
Festivus, yeah, Festivus. I mean, it was definitely like Friendsgiving, Christmas, but
Yes.
not Friends because they're banging. But like, you know, yeah. But you know, like Friendsgiving is kind of more fun than like Thanksgiving. So it was
Exactly.
like that, yeah. Because on Christmas, like they're with their families, being like, "Oh, I missed out on love." You know?
I must find it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I'm very excited that I found, you know, an author that I think I've read one other Harlow James. So this is a relatively new to me author, and you know, a book that had a hot holiday, which I feel like we don't get enough of. I of course want to see more, and I'm excited to share this one with our giveaway winner today. It is a beautiful red-headed woman on the cover. Although I will say she does, in the book, she's painted to be like a natural redhead, and this girl looks like she's had some color done. But that being said, she looks fabulous.
Yeah. They probably had to punch up the saturation for that cover.
That's true. Maybe that's it. She just had to stand out from the snow.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, though, for joining me. And where can all the people find and follow you, Laura?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, so if you want to find the Mermaid Podcast, you can find it at mermaidpodcast.com. If you want to find, you can find everything about me at lauravonholt.com. And if you want to find my romance books, you can find them at lauralovellybooks.com. Redheads guaranteed, not Halloween and The Nightmare Before Christmas, but not actually Christmas yet. Sorry. But, you know, Jingle Beard might be coming to a store near
2022.
you.
2022. Look out.
Guys.
Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody who, you know, has joined me for, again, this season. Not just the holiday season, but beyond. And I will be back in January, maybe a little bit later in January. I'm going to take a little break to start the year off, but there's plenty more to come. Like I said, I'm planning a Boobsmas in July already because I think there was just a ridiculous number of holiday books that came out this year, and there's no way that I can make it to all of them in one season. So that just means a lot more to look forward to come mid 2022 when we're already sick and tired of everything and want to dream of snow and getaways in, you know, the month of July.
Oh, can I make one recommendation that's not from the books that you read? Okay,
Sure.
So this is like my most favorite Christmas novella. It's historical. And I wish it were in print because it's only on ebook, and I don't know, I want it to be in print so more people who don't read it, but it's lovely. It is by Cecilia Grant, and it's called A Christmas Gone Perfectly Wrong. And it
Great
is
title.
like, yes, it is the most like soft, quiet, like feelings like you're crying and falling in love and like covered in snow, like beautifully done. There's some carriages. There's a one bed,
Always.
only one bed, you know, snowed in, but it's like, you know, Victorian times, so it's like, oh, so improper. It's one of my
with your pinkies up.
yes, exactly. It's one of my most favorite and like most tender romances. So
I
and
love it.
it has like sexy times in it, like on the page, good sex.
Good.
But also like feelings wise, just so soft and lovely.
Yeah, no, I'll share a link for that in the show notes for sure. And like between the episodes we're posting as well as like all the recommendations being made throughout the month, if that is not enough holiday romance to soothe your soul, here's one more from Laura. And I mean, it's just there's so many out there, and like I said, I wish I had the bandwidth to read all of them. Maybe in the near future I will start a all holiday romance podcast. Who knows? But if I don't have the bandwidth to read holiday romance now, I definitely don't have the bandwidth to start another podcast.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe 2022. 2022 will be
the
year.
Yeah. Exciting. Okay.
But until then, I'll leave you with this. On the 12th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 12 crotchless panties. Merry Boobsmas, everybody. We'll see you in the new year.
On the 12th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 12 crotchless panties, 11 bodice rippers, 10 tubes of lube, 9 naughty spankings, 8 rock hard up, 7 minutes in heaven, 6 billionaires, 5 heaters, 3 5 peas, 4 dukes of fucking, 3 butt plugs, 2 nipple clips, and a hot hookup underneath the tree. And a hot hookup underneath the tree. Merry Boobsmas, everybody. Ho, ho, ho.
Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.